Welcome to the Temple of Geek podcast. My name is Natasha, and I'm going to be your host as we share our thoughts on Gladiator II, which dropped in theaters a couple weeks ago. If you haven't watched it yet, save this episode for later and come back because there are definitely going to be spoilers as we talk about all the ins and outs of this movie. If this is your first time tuning in to the Temple of Geek podcast, welcome. The Temple of Geek podcast has been around since 2012 and is hosted by various geeks from the Temple of Geek team, myself included. Here we cover all manner of geek and pop culture news and events. And to our returning listeners, thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate you being here. With me today are Maria, one of our regular Temple of Geek contributors. So if you're a regular viewer, you probably recognize her. And JJ, who has been a guest on the podcast many, many times. Welcome back to the podcast, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Can you briefly introduce yourself to listeners and tell them a little bit about yourself? Maria, let's start with you.
Sure. So my name is Maria Watches Everything. You know me on TikTok and Instagram. I also work with Temple of Geek. I've definitely hosted a lot of podcasts and done articles. And yeah, I talk about everything I watch, a lot of fandoms, a lot of TV shows, a lot of deep dives and overthinking because I'm incapable of consuming media at a normal level. Currently talking about Bob's Burgers. I have no idea what I'm going to do afterwards because TikTok is being banned. But yeah, I'm now on Blue Sky as well. Maria Watches Everything was too long, so now I'll be Watch with Maria on Blue Sky if you want to follow me there.
Yeah, I like that.
Rebranding a bit, but not really. Yeah.
I'm still Maria. I'm still watching everything. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still watching things. I'm still the unhinged person that has no life watching things, but what's your name?
I love it.
All right, JJ, what about you?
You can find me on TikTok, Blue Sky right now under Lady Dragon JJ, but TikTok is apparently, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. Probably YouTube. We'll see what happens. So I'm gonna wait till that. Wait till I cross that bridge when it comes. So, but until then, you can find me on TikTok and Blue Sky talking about pop culture. I do a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire videos. That's my bread and butter. But I love Star Wars. I love Marvel. I love Marvel. DC has been great. Other things, Doom Prophecy, whatever, Arcane, those are my latest string of shows that I've been watching, really enjoying. So if you like nerdy things, that's what I talk about.
Yay! All right, awesome. And so, as I said, my name is Natasha, and you can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads, all under NKNAPPER, and TikTok, as long as it is with us, with under NKNAPP. And, I think I talk about some of the, same kind of things that Maria and JJ will talk about. Right now, I am just deep in a Wicked hole. I feel like I can't talk about anything but Wicked right now. It is it is truly taken over my life in a way that I was really not anticipating. Yeah, so that's what you can find me talking about these days. But today, we are going to be talking about Gladiator. So yeah, we've got a few things that we really wanted to dig into. And, I want to be completely transparent. Part of why we are doing this podcast is, JJ, Maria, and I are in a group chat together with some other friends. And, we all had some similar feelings about this movie that I'm sure we will dig into. And I think that we have a perspective that I think is worthy of sort of a larger conversation. So I want to first start off by just getting people's just general feelings about this movie. I'm going to start with you, JJ, and then we're going to go to Maria, and then I'll share my thoughts. But so we're going to start with you, JJ. Would love to hear what your initial thoughts are.
Now, let me tell you, I hate the way that you walk. I hate the way that you talk. I hate the way that you...
Nah, you're so hilarious.
Was I entertained in some parts? Yes. Did I like the movie overall? No, at all. I like it even less now that I watched Gladiator 1 today, just to sort of like refresh myself. And because these two movies are so connected, they are impossible to separate. So it is very difficult to watch Gladiator 1 in hindsight with Gladiator 2 now. It makes the movie for me even worse now that my memory has been refreshed with Gladiator 1. And I remember that experience back in 2000 when I first watched it. Like that movie, for its time, it's epic and it looks beautiful. Russell Crowe is great. So like Gladiator 2 now, I like it even less because I just recently refreshed my memory. So I don't like going out of a movie theater from a movie that's supposed to be serious and laughing the whole time. That was my... that was me and my husband when we left the theater. Like, what the fuck? We were laughing the whole time. Literally, like stuff that shouldn't be funny. We were laughing at it, and that's how I always know this movie is just not good. It's not a comedy, obviously. So why am I laughing? I did not like it. So if anybody's listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, I love this movie, this podcast may not be for you. I'm sorry. So that's just my opinion. I feel like I have to disclaim that every single time. Everybody finds always themselves very offended when you don't like a thing they do. Like I posted a review on this movie. I didn't like it and I got cooked pretty badly. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there. This is just my opinion. That's it. So. Correct. And it shouldn't impact other people. Why do you care? Yeah. Correct. Why do you care? How does my opinion affect you in any way? So I don't know. I did not like this movie at all. Yeah, I'm finding very little redeeming qualities about it. Maybe two, and we can talk about them.
Yeah. We'll definitely get into it, but yeah. Okay, Maria.
Okay, so I saw JJ's and like someone else's video about Gladiator 2 before walking in. And I trust JJ's opinion more than my own. So,
oh, no.
Just saying. But I did walk in with like an open mind because I wanted to shoot with my dad. He loves Gladiator 1. My mom is just like, ooh, these guys look cute. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I was going literally just to see Pedro Pascal and Joseph Quinn and Paul Pascal be hot. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I was going because I'm like, this is going to be a feast for my eyes. And I was into it until the plot started happening. As soon as the plot started, I'm like immediately checked out because I'm just like, what is the whole time? I think my problem was just like, what is this story? Like what Pedro's married to the old sister. Like the whole connections with the original, I felt like were so forced. Nat, you brought this up. The whole fridging of the wife immediately. The whole Pedro's married to the white girl. I was like, Joseph Quinn and Fred, whatever his name is, love them. Who are they? You know,
where'd they come from?
Like, are you? Whose kids are you? Like,
no explanation for them at all.
Denzel
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Shows up.
Sorry, this is your
Denzel just shows out of nowhere. So my problem was like the whole time I'm just like, none of this movie actually makes sense.
Makes sense.
No, visually beautiful. Men were very attractive. The guy next to me also felt like, I think he also had my same qualms because he was breathing heavily. I heard him go so many times.
I do love people's reactions to some of these movies. Like you can kind of tell the vibes immediately.
And like we walked out, and my mom was just like, "It was great," and my dad was like, "It was fine." And then we watched Gladiator 1 that weekend. Like we literally watched it the next day, and we're all like, "That movie sucks." like it's so bad. And like I think my biggest qualm was that they tried so hard to connect it to the first one. And I think that made it so much worse.
Literally.
And like the retconning, the like fake like emotions, like the exposition with trying. Also, I have a whole feeling about Denzel's whole arc. Don't
even
get into later.
We are going to get into that.
The one redeeming thing I will say is the performances were great. They were given nothing. Literally, Pedro got nothing. I would just say, like, was he even in the movie? Barely. But, like, the performances were great. It's just, like, the plot, the story, the writing was just so lacking, in my opinion. That's why I want to ask people that liked it. I'm like, what did you watch? Because I don't understand fully.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I can watch certain things and be like, I just want to watch it for the hot dudes. But, like, at the same time, like, I think like culturally, we might be doing a little too much. Let people enjoy things. Let people just like shut off their mind. I think it's too much. Personally, I don't want to shut off my mind for everything. There are certain things that you want to shut off your mind for. Gladiator II is not one of those movies. I'm not expecting historical accuracy. I want to make that clear. I don't want to have somebody in my comment section give me a whole historical history of Roman Empire and its Caesars, because I don't care. That's number one. And number two, like I went into Gladiator 2 because I loved Gladiator 1, and it was being obviously made by Ridley Scott. He had his original team with him. The casting looked spectacular. And then, like, after watching Gladiator 1, like, and going back to Gladiator 2, like, both movies open up with wheat. So, like, you have Maximus's character in an iconic wheat scene, and he's, like, with his hand moving through the wheat field. And then Paul Mescal character Lucius is, like, holding the grains like this. Obviously, the whole movie depends on your emotions from 20-something years ago.
It's very emotionally
that's what I don't like.
I hate when people force me to feel things that I'm not ready to feel, because like I'm a very emotional person. I will cry at everything.
Same.
Don't force me.
Same.
Force it. Like, don't make me feel that connection.
It's intellectually insulting. I'll be honest with you. When I am being like literally emotionally manipulated because, remember Maximus in the wheat field? Here's his, later on, we are doing spoilers so people know. Here's his son doing wheat again, fridging the wife again, becoming a slave again, becoming a gladiator again, finding a mentor again.
Minutes.
And you don't have time to, like, not that we connected with Maximus's wife, but you see her sort of in the background.
Yeah.
There's like,
there was progression.
There was progression.
She's always in the back.
There's a progression, and then like also like just generally like Russell Crowe was bringing in such you really felt that like in rewatching it earlier today when the scene where he returns home and he sees his wife and child burnt alive and hung, like you feel that. You're like, I felt nothing when Paul Mescal's like wife is murked, but other than anger, because I was just like really like, but like let me just say first, just kind of my general like opinion, my journey in like watching this movie really quick. So I feel like I might be slightly softer on this movie than you guys are. And that's
valid.
Okay.
Fair.
And that's okay.
Fair. I would like to hear it.
I think I am.
No, I don't accept that. No dissenting opinions allowed ever.
So.
No, I love that for you because I'm always a positive person, but I'm in my fully Kendrick Lamar hater era.
And I love that. I feel like we all need to lean into that. But
I've been a hater since 2019. I'm not letting up.
I'm a new hater. I'm a fully new hater. So.
My whole thing is there were certain performances, and I will say specifically, I want to point out Denzel Washington's performance was so fantastic, like that I felt like in it. And like I think because of, and again we'll get into it, because of where I thought the story was going with him. like I was like, oh wow, they're actually doing something really interesting, and then I was like, oh, never mind. But his performance in and of itself was really, really, it brought a level of nuance that the script did not actually have. Like he, as an actor, elevated every scene that he was in, and I think that on his back, like and I feel like so much of when I walked out of that movie, I just was thinking so much about his performance and like almost not even thinking that much about anything else that happened in the movie at first. It's one of those movies, though, that, like, as soon as you start pulling on, like, the threads even a little bit, you're like, everything falls apart, like, really, really quickly. Now, like, did Did I have fun when I was watching this movie? Yes, I will absolutely say I had fun. And like JJ,
agreed. It was a good time.
Oh yeah, and JJ, what you said totally resonated with me because I laughed the whole time. I was like, I felt like I was in a raucous comedy. Like I was just like, there were tears in my eyes at certain.
Low-key, I think they were leaning into comedy.
It was definitely more comedic than the first movie, for sure. But it's not meant to be.
There's no way they hired Joseph Quinn and Fred, whatever his last name, with a straight face. I mean, like, this is not going to be funny.
I mean,
the Emperors were
hilarious. They were so insane. I was their hilarity.
Tears in my eyes. I was having a ball. Now, did I have a good time watching this movie? Yes. Is this a good movie? Absolutely not. Like,
yes, that's a great way to say it.
That's actually
this is not a good movie. And my personal thing is where I feel like I know this movie failed is like when I go in and watch the first Gladiator movie. Obviously, there are things that, like, I'm not even going to get into, like, the inaccuracies, like, historically, because, like, JJ, like, said, like, I don't care, who cares? Like, that's not why I'm watching these movies, right? Like, so, like, that's fine.
Baseline,
right. Yeah. So, I don't care about that. So, when I'm watching the first Gladiator movie, at no point am I feeling pulled or angry or whatever about the politics of the movie. Even though, like, I don't actually agree with the politics of the movie, but who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't bother me because, like, that's not the point. But in Gladiator II, I came out of that movie so angry about the politics of it.
Yep. It was frustrating.
And of all the things I was expecting to feel of this movie, that is actually, like, astounding to me because that's not something. Like, the politics is not, it's a weird thing to say because it's almost, it is kind of a political movie, but it's not.
It is. No, it is.
Yeah, it is, but it's like, it's not taking itself, I don't know how to say it. Like, it's not even that it's not taking itself seriously, but when you're watching the first Gladiator movie, you can kind of experience this movie almost as like an alternative world that you're watching. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not looking at this as like a reflection of like my political reality in this world that we live in.
Yeah. You immerse yourself into a story that's presented to you without like, being like self-inserting yourself. You're immersed.
Which is what media is supposed to be.
Exactly. Exactly. But when I was watching this movie, I was like, I can't believe the people that you are expecting me to root for, given the context of the story and how you've presented the story. That's actually wild to me.
I like I said, like I agree with you in the whole. I did enjoy the movie. I didn't take it as seriously, and the only reason why I want to be a hater is because of that ending. Because, like, up until then, like, I think I could have just been like, yeah, it was a fun watch. It's Twisters. It's Glenn Powell at his, like, goofiest. Like, it's just a good time at a theater. But them... Okay, like the Denzel Washington plotline, I also thought they were going to go in a very different way with it. And I thought that I was biting for that reason. I'm like, I'm waiting for this arc. I'm waiting for this shift change. It just never did. And then it just like relented on itself to just like push forward into this, like making him the villain. And him being a slave for Marcus Aurelius and then like not, and then being unalived so unceremoniously, and he's such an
brutally.
Everyone watched it happen. Against Paul Mescal, I'm just like the guy that we're supposed to be rooting for. I'm like, no, I'm hating this movie my whole personality because I'm like that ending was just so like appalling in my opinion, and that is why. So like, I think it was fun. I feel like the messaging deserves the hate.
Yeah, the messaging deserves the hate. Yeah.
The thing is, like with the first Gladiator, it is so 101 basic surface level shit. It's a revenge story. It is a journey story of a man who was wronged, family killed, and he's on his way to kill the emperor.
It's a hero's journey.
It's kind of a hero's journey, but like the political level, it's literally, do we want a bunch of senators ruling or do we want one empire, like one emperor? That's literally the conflict, political conflict. You know what I mean? So it's easier for you to kind of discern because it's presenting two very like different sides. You know what I mean? Like you have like God Emperor style, and you have the 50 senators that represent the entire Roman Empire. That's literally what the stakes are up against each other. In this film, and again, that last twist towards the end, like I was so sure that they were going to lean into like, all of this has to go. All of it. This entire system has to crumble. And then like with Denzel Washington, when he reveals the tattoo that he was branded, during Marcus Aurelius, whom we were hearing for the past 24 years as this great emperor who had a dream to kind of abolish the empire-led kind of Roman Empire. He was the one that was also doing the system that he was trying to take down. And Denzel Washington ended up being the bad guy for that. And then like I had people argue in my comment section, well, he owned slaves too. He did all this. I'm like, but that's the interesting part of the story, that you can lean into how people resort to very drastic measures to climb the ladder of power to reach a point where they can't actually take down a system. That's where I thought the movie was going until it was revealed he's the fucking bad guy. And sorry, man. And then I lost it. I'm like, oh, well, the only thing left in this movie for me to root for is the freaking monkey. Who done this? Is he okay?
I was like, please let that monkey survive. Please let the monkey survive.
I was ready for him to take over Rome, seriously.
I mean, and the movie like tries to like, you're right, he leans into the comedy with Dondas being like on the council because the emperors were so insane, especially like when you compare him to Commodus, like Joaquin Phoenix's Commodus is brilliant. He's very good. Like daddy issues on like to an extreme level. He literally commits patricide and is in a constant conflict with like a self-insert brother of the father who adopted another son versus you, because you just don't have the qualities that I see for an emperor, for a leader of this empire. Like it leans into that father-son issues so hard, like into familiar issues. Adding like the bond between him and Maximus and the incestual thing with Lucilla, like
sister, yeah, man.
But it plays it kind of seriously. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah,
the emperors, like with Joseph Quinn and the other one, I don't know what they're called. At this point, I really don't care. I'll be honest with you. If somebody tries, actually, I don't care. Like they played it on such a comic level. I can't take any of it seriously. Like how are they able to stay this long in power without somebody just like. This whole time.
That's why I'm just like, I need context. I'm like, who are these kids? Why are they even given power? Like, I just don't understand. Like, I can't take them seriously. Where do they come from? Tell me more.
And one more thing, the entire plot of Gladiator II hinges. So Gladiator 1 ends, right? And Maximus dies. Okay, Lucius is safe. Fine. Great. He's carried off the Colosseum. Emperor left behind. Great.
I never cared about Lucius. And like
nobody gives a shit about that kid. I'm sorry. Who gave a fuck?
To be that like emotional center that he is revealed that Paul Mescal is Lucius, I'm like, I literally still don't care. Like, I don't understand the connection. Why do they have to force these connections? Like, it made no sense.
Well, let me ask you one thing in Gladiator, because the whole plot hinges on it, and once you pull that thread, it unravels the whole fucking thing. So, like, if Lucius is safe, why is his mother in movie 2 sending him off without a caretaker into God knows where to save him from what exactly?
This is what I'm saying. That part of it never made any sense. So I like literally at one point in the movie, I went and saw it with a friend of mine, and they leaned into me at some point, and we're just like, did she just like dump him in the middle of the woods somewhere? and just walked away. Like what? Like how is that any safer for him than like?
And the whole thing was that he's safe now. Oh, let me just send you away? What?
Who's trying to harm? Like, she was afraid for her son because of her insane brother that could probably take out his nephew from being a threat to the throne.
What exactly?
Maximus' literally last words is Lucius is safe. That was like his whole point. And then all of a sudden, the second movie, this is like, what, 20 years later. Like, I think that's a problem with Gladiator 2. It's set too closely to the first one. It's like, who is trying to harm this child that you're trying to literally dump without a caretaker, without a location? You just put him on a horse, let him ride where? He's still going to be riding, like everybody can recognize him. He's a obscene face. And I just want to say one more thing. The blonde hair and like turns into like a dark-haired man with a nice larger nose. Like, what the fuck is happening? That's how genetics work. How do you? And also one more thing, and this is a Ridley Scott problem in the first movie. If you look at Maximus's son, right? Because there's shots of him versus Lucius. Both characters, Lucilla and Maximus, they say the kids are 8 years old. I'm sorry, Lucius looks 15. The other one looks 8. And then I'm like, is she lying to him to conceal his paternity? Like, why does that matter? Like, the whole movie is leaning into Maximus's honor as a father, as a husband. Like, that's his driving force throughout the film. That old school romanticism of a hero. And so I'm gonna get somebody in my comments. Well, those medieval men, they'd be fucking everybody and having. I'm like, that's not the point of Gladiator I.
There is a curmudgeon old man.
That's what I'm saying. But that's why Gladiator 1 works, because he leans into that romanticism of a hero, that he's a good man doing a good thing.
He's like the Ned Stark. He's the Aragorn. You know what I mean? They don't do that.
Like, that was my other thing too. I'm like, I feel like the appeal for Gladiator 1, maybe at least for me, was the fact that it could have been anyone. It was the everyday man. It was someone who worked on, it wasn't someone who was born into this. So, for it to be like he was born into this in Gladiator 2, I'm just like, that's the antithesis of the first one.
Literally, they lead into the blood purity, because Lucius can be somebody's bastard or a son of his dead father. Like, apparently his father died in the first movie.
It's like The Last Jedi. Ray Skywalker could be anyone. That was the purity of it, right? Like, that's what we love about that. So I'm just like, that's why I like Gladiator 1. It could have been anyone. Like, yeah, he was a
farmer who rose in ranks in military.
He's a farmer. Exactly. It's Rogue One.
It's like the Spider-Man thing. Anyone can wear the mask. That's the point. So, when it becomes this whole thing, like you're saying, that it's now, you have to come from some sort of pure lineage to somehow be a powerful special gladiator. It just, and let me just say,
the laziest of all tropes. I hate it.
Nothing about Paul Mescal's journey made any sense. Nothing about his story made sense. I didn't root for him at any point in the story. I just kept waiting for his story to be revealed to me at some point. Nothing made sense. We have this wife that we see them share a scene once, and then she's gone, but there's just and he seems to get over it pretty fast, actually, whereas with Maximus in the,
dare I say, the moment he learned who his dad was, all of a sudden, I love my mom, I love Rome. You were a slave in Africa, and then you were shipped into Rome to be a slave and a gladiator. All of a sudden, your daddy's famous, and Rome good, mommy good for dumping me to God knows where without a protector.
So true.
And it makes no sense. There is no other reason for the switch that he had. And I think this, again, goes back to my problem with how they wrapped up the story with Denzel Washington's character. Because how in the world can you start the movie off with the Roman army showing up and just fucking slaughtering, sorry, Monica, just slaughtering.
It's very hard not to curse for this movie, I swear to God.
How are we going to do this? You just slaughtering all of these black and brown people, just across the board, just murdering and murking all of these people, heartlessly. We see Pedro Pascal there, just making the choices to do this thing, right? And with this army behind him, we see all of this happen in the beginning of the movie. It's awful. And the way that the movie is presented, you are meant to be empathizing with the black and brown people. They're not even writing them as like the villains, because like in the first movie they kind of did like, you know, treat these folks like,
the first movie was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it is what it is. But like the way that it is written and presented in this movie, you are supposed to be on their side. So at what point in the story did it switch up where the audience suddenly, out of nowhere, for no reason at all that we see on screen, like now we're supposed to root for the Romans? There was like a weird sort of thing that they did kind of towards the middle, where they were like, Rome should belong to the people, but they never made the Roman people like relevant in the forefront of the story, to the point in which at the end, when they brutally murder Denzel Washington's character, this doesn't happen in front of the people of Rome. It's just in front of like a bunch of soldiers. And when Paul Mescal has this like,
that was a very weird choice.
When Paul Mescal has this like big speech at the end where he's just, I don't even remember what he said, but basically like the gist was Rome belongs to like the people or whatever. And he gestures towards the Roman army. I was like,
optics.
That's the other thing. Whenever he like kills Denzel, who was literally enslaved by the Roman like emperor, and he's like, Rome belongs to the people. I'm like, you just killed one of the Roman
people. He's the only person in this whole space that is like the people you're talking about.
What do you mean? I was like, this makes sense. Also, half the army is not from Rome. Remember, they like Pedro got some other army. I'm like, that's not the Roman army.
And you know what? I want to add to this, but because I think it's relevant to the conversation. His best friend, like the one he connects the most, is a Middle Eastern doctor, whose entire thing is, I'm married to a he's Indian. I'm sorry.
Yeah, which is also, I love how my family and I are like, what is the history behind this? Like, it's not historically accurate, but we went into history fast. We were like, wait, did Rome conquer India? When did they conquer India? Because his name is Money. But we're like, that's the most Indian name you can find. So we're like, when did they conquer India? So we started freaking out, personally, historically speaking.
What do you tell him? Like, you got your freedom. Why didn't you leave? Oh, I married a white blonde lady, and that's it.
Honestly, very on brand for an Indian man, but just saying. I was like, well, it checks out. Bye. Then you can't see my face.
I'm crying.
Oh my god, I'm dying.
But that took me out. Like, that was the entire doctor's personality. I'm here. I'm helping Rome and its gladiators because my wife is white and we have my kids don't speak our native language. I was like, what is this movie? Is this like the most pro-empire film I have ever seen in my life? And like to put that movie out there in the current political climate.
I can't help but feel like, are you serving a political agenda? Like, especially with the Denzel like turn, I was like, low key.
Denzel turn was insane to me.
And I will just say, with Denzel's character, I knew that they were going to take a bad turn when they had him kill Lucilla.
Yeah,
that's when I knew. I was like, they're not going to let him come back from killing a white lady. They're never going to let him come back from that.
That scene was bonkers when he like just straight up shoots her. I was like, what?
And she just died. No last words, no big speeches. Nothing.
He just
remember like the Dark Knight Rises? What's the daughter's Ra's al Ghul's daughter? What's her name? Doesn't matter. When
Angelina Jolie.
She's literally in a car. Lucilla dies. I was like, no conversation with her son that apparently is just after now okay.
Of her being the one that like takes Bane in her way, like just after that whole arc.
Insane. This movie, like the more I think about it, the more insane it gets. Like her death was so anticlimactic. I've never seen anything like it.
The whole ending was anticlimactic. Yeah,
to the point where I couldn't believe she was actually dead. Like I was like, that can't be. They brought her back from the first movie. Like, why would you do that and just kill her?
They set up a whole pretty stage for her and everything.
Literally, pretty death. Correct.
Yeah, just for her to be shot so unceremoniously. It's literally like women just need to look pretty and not talk. Like, it just, so much about this ending just triggering, very triggering.
It is. And all the senators from like the first movie that have literally no lines in this movie, they're just butchered randomly. Like,
yeah.
Like these were the same senators in the first movie that were leading behind, like, to actually overthrow the emperor, make it a republic again. Like, that's the whole drive of this. And all of a sudden they're tied to the carriage and slaughtered like animals. No conversation, nothing. Like, all the political juice got sucked out the second they killed off Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, that's true.
Even like in the beginning, which I thought was kind of strange, the way when he attacks the North African shores when Roman Empire was expanding and all of that. So like they show him in a very like bloodthirsty way, which in hindsight, when you look in the future, like as the movie progresses, you see that he's struggling obviously with this endless conquest because you have to feed all these people. Like, but in the first 30 minutes of the film, when he's conquering North Africa, he's very like bloodthirsty, kill her, slaughter them. Like he's like, there's no like conflict on his face. Like, oh my God, look at all this death. Look at all what we're doing. Because that's the character you represented us later with. There's somebody who wants to make republic, who wants to stop the expansion, who wants to stop the war and bloodshed and all of that. But in the beginning, like you literally gave him a POV and he's a bloodthirsty conqueror.
Yeah. My two thoughts about this, because like we're bringing up the fact that they bring back they had Pedro Pascal, who is not cheap. Like to get Pedro Pascal in this movie,
him and Denzel were probably most expensive.
Yeah, to bring back all these senators, to bring back, I can't remember the sister, now daughter, like wife's name.
Oh, Connie Nielsen.
Yeah, Connie Nielsen. To bring all these people back, what did they sell them? Because like we talked about this before, like I feel like there was studio interference or something, because like I don't think they were sold the story that we saw, because there's no way they would have come back for such a like.
It's chopped up, like literally Paul Mescal's character Lucius, everything that's happening in that movie is literally because plot needs it to happen.
Yeah, it's not coherent. It's like PowerPoint presentation, like we always joke.
It genuinely is a PowerPoint. There's no flow to this. It's literally chopped up in pieces, and like characterizations and motivations go like literally all over the place. There's no natural progression. And like if you look at the first film, they establish like Russell Crowe as this military commander that's experienced. His men know him. He demands respect. But you like that's built into the story that he has this influence. He's literally hugging the emperor, which means he's on high level of power with Pascal, with Lucius. Like, where did this like not even confidence, but like all this inspiration that his men follow him for? What reason? What reason? First of all, you're initially motivated to kill Pedro Pascal to avenge your wife.
Because he fought a monkey. You have to remember, he fought a monkey.
Oh my God, like the movie gets insane. Like I
the sharks? Wait, the animals was like so unnecessary. I'm like, why are the sharks here?
Apparently water in Colosseum was a thing that was done. Not a lot, but it was done. So fine, I'll buy that. But there are 20 so like now picturing all these 15 sharks, like, and this is all happening like within what, a month? This is all happening really fast. Like where were you storing these 15 sharks? Where? Like did you build like giant pools and all of a sudden you get all these peasants and slaves to like lug him into these giant like carriers and like ship him into, like I was like,
that whole portion of the movie, like the sharks, like the weird CGI animals that like they were fighting or whatever, was like really giving Fast and Furious vibes. Like that was that was like the vibe of that movie. Like I had the same feeling about that scene as I did when like they actually shot a car into outer space. Like Fast and the Furious. that was the vibe of that. And I was just like, this is the tonal like just like shifts all over in this movie were just like, it was just like everywhere. Like I didn't know when we were going to, like when you're watching these Colosseum fight scenes in the first movie, you felt so much tension, you felt so much like fear, like you felt like you were really like you were feeling the authentic like fear and like danger and violence of what was happening. This just felt goofy. There was like not a Coliseum scene where I was feeling tension. I felt mostly like, this is silly. Yeah, they're probably all gonna die. And I also didn't care that much about like the Gladiator characters.
I have no emotional connection to any of the gladiators. None of them. Not even Paul Mescal is like no, because they, and again, like a lot of people say, no, Paul Mescal was a miscast. He was not. I think he's a great choice. The script is the problem. He was given nothing to work with.
I think the performances, the actors were perfect and they did their best. It's just like the writing, the script, what they were given was just not measuring up for them to be at their best.
But that's the thing, like, script is gonna guide your acting. I'm sorry. Even good actors can have shitty performances. Like, it wasn't good. Like, even like if you have a crappy script, like your performance can kind of sell it. Denzel Washington is a perfect example. That script is awful, but he leaned into it so hard, into like the camp and the opulence and the role that he was given. He literally like just like gave it his all, and you could tell. Well, the other actors are just kind of going through motions. Pedro Pascal is doing nothing in this film. Like there's an interesting bit where he is like conspiring behind a screen to take down the emperors and install republic, and like that goes nowhere. There's no conversation between him and Paul Mescal to like what they want this dream of Rome to be, Marcus Aurelius' dream, which again, moot when you have Denzel's character saying, hey, the dream that you have is bullshit. This is the dream that you were thinking about, and it shows the branding. I'm like, all of this is bullshit. And he's the bad guy for saying empire bad, and I will take it down however I know how.
Which is so crazy. They could have just leaned him to be good guy at that moment. They could have just leaned him to be the good guy in that moment. Like,
it would have changed the tone of the entire film had they leaned into, this is all of this has to come crumbling down.
That was such a powerful moment.
Totally.
I think I went to the bathroom at that point. I walked out for a second. I was like, I just need a bathroom break.
Well, dare I say the film literally jumped a shark.
Yeah.
Like literally and figuratively. Yeah. So two kind of thoughts that I have on this. Like, I felt, especially in rewatching the first movie, I felt some kind of way about the fact that in the first movie, the person whose name I am not remembering right now, but the guy that basically was like running the like gladiator like games in the first movie, they allowed him to be a nuanced character that was like, he was like doing these things where like he was like, he also had his own sort of history of being somebody who was like a previous like gladiator and like was like enslaved, right? And he then went on to then become somebody who owned gladiators, and and like while he also did die in the first movie, he was able to die in a way where he got to
give Maximus a chance. Yes.
Yeah, like his heroic moment, right? It bothers me that they were able to have that nuance for a white guy in the first movie.
Oliver Reed,
but in
Proximo.
This movie,
that's the character's name,
Proximo,
yeah.
That's right, Proximo. But in this movie, for Denzel Washington, they could not manage that at all. They had to like make him a complete villain. And like, it is absolutely ridiculous, especially with the context of that story. Mm-hmm. And I think that like when I think about the possibilities of what they could have done with having characters like his and Pedro Pascal's character both coming from the same perspective of like, this has got to go, those two characters could have teamed up in a way that was so powerful, and that the whole time I thought that's where the story
was
literally
going. Thought that's what's going to happen, because they have the same goal. One of them, let's say, wants to take down the whole thing apart. The other one is like, we have to find a middle ground because you can't just tear the whole system apart. We got to fill that vacuum in with some other power. Also, like, you could have an interesting story there, interesting collaboration between two people that see the empire that thing, but no, and I even would have accepted it. There's even some part of me that would have even accepted it if that was sort of like the pairing that they had in the movie, but at the end of the day, like
Rome's sort of insistence in like this power structure won out, and they still ended up dying, but like they didn't die as villains.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there is like there is a way that they could have done this story, even if you needed it to end with Rome being in this political space, that could have happened without villain.
He also died by the end of it, but he wasn't the villain. Like, just.
But isn't that the frustrating thing regarding the first movie versus this one? It's like you kill Russell Crowe's character, Maximus dies, Lucius is safe, the evil emperor is dead, senators are taking over. You are telling me within 15 to 20 years, everything that Maximus achieved was bullshit. Nothing. They literally elected or put even crazier two fucks on that throne than Commodus was. Do you know what I mean? Like, Commodus was, like, weird as hell. He's like, I love the people. People are my children. Like, I want to do this. I want to do this. He was misguided and, like, not all there. Obviously, fought daddy issues, like, galore. But, like, within the 15 to 20 years after that first movie, you're telling me now those senators that made all these promises, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, like, seriously, what happened?
And there's no explanation. They just never give any explanation. And I think that is, I think a lot of things, like in terms of this movie, just never really kind of lived up to the first one, because like, again, I think essentially like the core problem is the script. The script and a lot of other things came into play around the script that like made this movie what it was. But, you know, I think that I don't know if it was studio interference. I don't know if it's that like Ridley just had like, you know, was just trying to sort of like recreate the same beats from the first movie and just didn't know how to do that in a way that like let this movie kind of be its own thing. Like, I think it was just like a combination of all of these things, and this script, it definitely felt like there were pieces of this movie that we just haven't seen.
I agree.
Like that feels very clear to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like, and it's so weird because like it's like Ridley Scott made the first one, so he knows what the messaging was and what was appealing. But what got me about the second one, and this is why I think it's maybe studio interference, is because it just felt like a cash grab sequel, nostalgia based.
100%.
And I just thought that they just didn't care about what was successful about the first one. So like,
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so I really do feel like it was more so studio interference. I don't think Ridley Scott has been doing well though in general. So maybe
lately.
But like,
has a lot of bangers, but he's got a lot of stinkers too. Like,
especially unfortunately, you know.
Yeah, his recent films have not been give me those feelings. But I agree with what you're saying, Maria, because like to me it felt like there was a movie in there that had a completely different message and like had like a different, like something different was supposed to happen there, or there was supposed to be like more context like that we're not seeing. And I wouldn't be surprised if the studios were like, listen, we're not seeing enough connection to this movie, to like the first one, so like we need you to add in more flashbacks. We need you to like add like.
Was this a clip show? Was this a clip episode? Please. I was like, what am I watching? Why are there so many clips from the first one?
The whole opening is literally the field scene that's iconic. Literally, the whole opening is literally the wheat fields that we know from Gladiator 1. They literally grab you from the beginning to remember the first movie. Remember.
Wait, when it happens once, I'm like, fine, once. It happened like 4 times.
It was insane.
Like, I feel like there were like 2 or 3 scenes that they just straight up even refilmed with like a new Lucius kid. Yes! Just because like they're like, the flashback's not even enough. We're now like, where do we need to? We need to recreate these exact scenes.
Now knowing that they did not decide that Lucius is Maximus's bastard until into production tells me everything It tells me everything I need. That wasn't even an original idea. It literally came up with it when you started filming. That tells me everything I need to know about this movie. I'm not saying that
That's
so disappointing.
It's very telling
not that
too. It's so telling.
That's all I need to know. And again, can you infer in the first film that they had some sort of an affair prior to him being married? Maybe. But the whole point, like, again, either she's lying in the first movie, oh, my son is 8. No, he literally looks like a 13-year-old. And by the way, that 13-year-old little play and joking unraveled the entire conspiracy and everybody fucking died. I just want to put that out there, a 13-year-old.
That's the other thing. I was like, even if he is his kid, I never cared about him. Also, he never cared about him. Maximus never cared about that kid.
He literally just died. Lucius is saying, you just died. What, if that's your son, like, you just let him be? Like,
he's literally mourning his other son. That was all I kept thinking the second time. I'm like, isn't his real son dead? Like, that's all I care about.
And like, I'm just gonna say this right now. I know, like, I texted this like in our like chat earlier. I'm just gonna say it here. Like, you will never convince me that his real father is like his uncle. Like, I still believe that Joaquin Phoenix, what was his Commodus and Lucilla had their little incestuous time like together, and like I feel like I have like, you know, empathy or whatever. It's very clear that Lucilla like didn't want that.
Absolutely not. That whatever that dynamic was, it was very one-sided. And towards even the end, they kind of kiss on the mouth, and he tells her, "I want an heir from you. I want a pure blood emperor." Literally tells her that. So the implication that Lucius could be his son is there as well. Like, because they are like I said, they were really leaning into incest from the get-go.
Yeah, I feel like it was a big part of her character too, because even like in the beginning, whenever she's like, "Don't you like me anymore?" to like Maximus, he's just like, "I understand that you had to do what you need to do to survive, so you put on this front to survive." You're very clearly afraid constantly, and you see that whenever she knows that Commodus kills her father. It's so obvious, but like she slaps him, and then she's just like, then I'll take you as my emperor, because like she's literally acting of survival constantly.
So literally survival mode.
Yeah, so it's very clear that she's just going along with it, but it's very likely that her brother could have abused her this whole time, and that's why she feels this need of always being survival mode. So like, I don't know, that just makes so much more sense than like they had an illegitimate child that they never spoke of ever until like the sequel.
And it would make a lot of sense for her to protect that boy from his, because Commodus is not a stable emperor at all. He is so obsessed with his image and obsessed with being his father's son, and obsessed with having that love that he gave.
He's very Ramsay Bolton.
Very Ramsay Bolton coded. So like, for her to protect that boy is kind of a big part of the character. And in one of the lines she says to, I think Maximus, like, "I'm tired of being strong all the time. Like, I'm tired of not being, I'm constantly afraid of him." And even like Commodus says at the end, like, "If you look at me the wrong way, and if I feel you're looking me the wrong way, I will kill the boy." Like, he's that unhinged. So she's protecting that boy. Like, let's say even if Commodus is his father, due to incestual relationships of these emperors is not like an uncommon thing. Let's be real. Like, these things. So it's like, for them to like decide in production, oh, wait a minute, no, we're going to make Lucius Maximus' son, because that's somehow, and retcon the ages of the boys. Like, for me, it's a very lazy trope of like legitimizing Lucius, that he's the good one because he's Maximus' son, when you could have really played into like, I'm not going to be my father, let's say. I'm not my father. I'm not the dirty incestual blood everybody would want. You know what I mean? Like playing into the blood purity tropes. Like I don't know. I just hate the fact that they turned Maximus into having an illegitimate son, when the entire crux of his character is being a father, being a husband. I don't know. I don't like it.
Also, like, his whole father's thing is like he's of honor. Like, not saying that like it's unhonorable, whatever, but like that was his whole thing.
Yep. And I think that like what's weird to me is like, you didn't have to make him his father in order for like Maximus to have an impact on him.
Exactly.
And I think Ridley Scott called him a spiritual father,
just like they did in the first one, because that was it's literally a running theme for the Gladiator like series.
You could have literally kept all this other stuff about him, like caring about Maximus, finding like the Maximus, all of like sort of like the tokens of Maximus's like life and all those sort of things.
Denzel and Pedro are right there. They could have been your father figure.
Correct.
That is what I will never understand, especially because they had a tenuous relationship between him and Denzel. And the whole time I thought it was going to be like him and Denzel like forming this relationship with their feelings about Rome and like needing to like take out like Rome as like, you know, like a place or like the empire, and it was going to be through his relationship with Denzel that he was able to heal his relationship with his mother and Pedro Pascal.
Thank you. That's literally what I thought they were doing.
I could see all the pieces of that story, and like all of a sudden it just went
to whatever it went.
It was right there. It was right there for them. They were building it up, and then.
But they pasted that way that it looks like it was cut and spliced into pieces, and none of it makes sense. And again, they could have really played, and even if they wanted to play Denzel as a villain, fine, do that. But that's not what you did. You literally showed him as a former slave of the famed emperor that everybody loves, who wants to take down the system that's doing all of this, and he's the fucking bad guy, instead of just being like, oh, I want to kill the rich people because I feel like it. Fine, do that. I'm still going to root for you. That won't change my...
Yeah, you never got me to hate him.
There's nothing.
You would never get me to hate that character. I was like, I was on your side through everything.
I think it's really disingenuous to put a 70-year-old Denzel Washington to play against 30-year-old Paul Mescal, who was playing in the Gladiator arena as this freaking like a Superman level strength, and you're placing this older man and like brutally murder, like the strength wasn't even.
Yeah, that sounds like it's so unceremoniously. Like it was so terrible.
A battle of wits, battle of intelligence, battle of ideology, battle of political stances. Like no, but they had to like give them swords, and of course Denzel Washington character is gonna
circumstantial death. Like make it like a tragic story of like unexpected death or something that didn't mean to happen. Like don't make it like literally like the Nazis like brutally unaliving him in front of everyone. Like
no, literally have a battle of wits. Obviously, you have like, but then again, Lucius, Paul Mescal's character is literally a shell of a character. He's not a real character. He is a Maximus Junior. He's a Walmart version of Maximus Decimus. So you can't do intelligence battle with somebody who is an intelligent character. For them to have that final showdown, to them to discuss their ideological differences. I'm like, how does Paul Mescal go literally from I'm gonna go on a revenge spree because my wife got fridged, I'm a slave, to all of a sudden Rome good, my mom good. Like, what are we doing?
Kill Denzel Washington. Yeah.
I can't get it. But you keep hammering that because it's true. That's the frustrating part, Nat. I swear to God.
Yeah. And I've also just never seen such a clear version, like just such a clear example of fridging. Like,
egregious.
I mean, they didn't even care about this woman. Like, they killed her.
I don't think she had a name.
Wait, what is her name?
Oh, exactly.
Oh, no. Hold on.
She probably had a name that was said once. I kid you not. I was just like, she's gone already. Okay. Like,
oh my God.
Does she have a name? No.
Wait, speaking of women that got cut out, we need to take a moment to talk about how they completely cut out May Calamawy. I'm sorry, I was livid. I think that's also when they lost me. I'm just like, where is she? So
she's literally a decoration in the background.
She's in like, I think literally 5 seconds. And that's another reason why I think there was cuts.
Unbelievable.
There was reshoots because like there's very clearly like interference about production.
I'm glad that you brought that up too, because like I think like I agree that was when I started to actually start to worry that this movie maybe wasn't going to be good.
When
that was when I was like, that's when I was starting to feel like I'm getting a little concerned.
And Pedro Pascal posting those photos with me and the scarf, he's sending a message there. Yeah. That was before the movie came out. Those photos came out, and then the news about her, like, oh, this movie is kind of cooked. Yeah, probably. No,
when people said that she wasn't in it, I was like, oh, she's not. Her scenes got cut. I was like, okay, maybe like lines got cut. No, she got cut out of that movie.
out,
like,
just plucked her right out of the movie.
She's in besides like background character.
She is literally a decoration to look pretty behind Denzel Washington. That's 2 scenes, I believe.
You would never see her.
Correct. Unless you know who the actress is. Correct.
Yeah. If you went in there with no context that this was a person that was supposed to be in this movie, you would have no idea. You would never pay attention to her. Like, it's so, yeah, I think, like, I agree with you. There are too many things that happened that make me feel like there is, like, studio interference. I will just say, just to kind of put a bow in it before we kind of share some, like, last thoughts about the film. Like, you know, I think this is one of those movies that I watched that made me but continue to feel concerned about the trend that Hollywood is going in right now. Yeah. Not just with sort of like the sequel obsession that we are in, like the just lack of originality, and just sort of like, you know, Hollywood is really just not even just Hollywood, because this is like bigger than just that. I think it's like Hollywood and audiences are just accepting the fact that we are just living in like an unoriginal simulation now. And like all these movies that we are, and that like people will just accept whatever kind of, you know, nonsense that we are served. You know, I want to be as kind as possible here.
Understandable.
Like,
well, it's Temple of Geek. We have to be positive. We get it.
I want to be kind here and say, like, if you liked this movie, that's fine. I'm not saying that if you went into this movie and you had a good time, or you came out of it and you're like, I really like this movie, this is like my favorite movie of the year, whatever, that's fine. Like, and I'm not saying that makes you a bad person, or it makes you bad at engaging in art, or like any of those things. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that, like, I am concerned about like how artistically bankrupt like these films are continuing to feel like year after year, and just sort of like grasping on to nostalgia as a way to continue to just like pour out these like storyless pieces of, you know, junk. And I feel like engaging with kind of junk movies every now and again is fine. It's Hollywood. These kinds of movies have always existed, right? But like now it's not just a thing where it's like, oh, it just happens every once in a while. This is like the norm.
It is.
Like extreme studio interference to the detriment of the final product is just the norm. And I am worried about what this means for the film industry and the kinds of art that we are even going to be able to see, like, you know, in the future.
But you even, you even see like interviews with, like, let's say like Disney and Lucasfilm, like saying, or even like Marvel, they want to make movies based on feedback from the audience, which to me is insane, and it is incredibly dangerous. Yeah. And now, like, with the success of Moana 2, which Moana is a great, like, first one I've seen like a zillion times, I swear to God. My niece is obsessed with it. I've seen it. I haven't seen Moana 2 just yet, but again, it's very successful. It made, like, insane amount of money. Yeah. It tells you about the trend that we're doing. Yeah. Maybe Wicked is still a remake of something that we know. It's not an original film.
The new Mufasa movie?
That I refuse. I refuse. I'm sorry. That it looks
that out of my memory. I'm just like, I would acknowledge it.
And same with like How to Train Your Dragon, and like I can't even speak about it in a negative way because of the racist backlash towards Nico Parker.
I know.
Instead of us,
it's so frustrating.
And instead of us talking about this remakes of
don't forget, there's also Snow White live action happening too right now.
Please don't get me started on that.
I'm watching everybody.
I have a lot to say. Yeah. That's also happening.
It looks terrible. Even if you take out the problematic, the idea of Barbie, Gal Gadot, if you take out the CGI dwarves, that movie looks absolutely terrible. It looks
nobody
awful.
wants that.
Nobody wants
and people pretending that they are Snow White super fans.
Liars.
Liars! Nobody. I don't believe you.
The only movie I think that
You're
the only remakes I've given somewhat grace is the Cinderella, because the blue dress looks insane.
Oh yeah!
My God, the effort that went into that dress is that alone had me magical.
I know. I'm sorry. Angelina Jolie is Maleficent.
But it's also a bit of an original take on the character. It's not just a regurgitation. Yeah,
exactly.
It was a twist. So Maleficent's the only one that I'm I'm okay with the sequel for that one. I like the backstory, but the rest.
But you're right. The too many sequels, and I hate to say it, this sliding back into the good old days. The traditionalism.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
there's a lot
heavy.
You said that with it leans into I think the state of the world of leaning back into remember the good old days when you're driven so much by nostalgia because you remember you watched this thing, made you feel good for a moment, but you're forgetting the context of the world that you lived in and everything else. So it is concerning, not just because of the sliding back into the good old days, but also it's rise of AI, abusing your CGI artists and not paying them,
it's
working them overtime, not paying them.
Because we're also not getting original ideas, but we're paying more for all of it. Because we're paying more for all of this always, which is the most ridiculous part.
Every time,
people are like, "Oh no, shut up and don't complain." It's but how much are you paying to see this movie? $30? I'm sure.
And movies have gotten so expensive too, and it's nobody wants to take risk on an original film, original story. And I'm guilty of it too. Half the time I don't know what's out there until I see it either promoted by somebody on social media or whatever. I genuinely don't get that kind of marketing for some reason. Maybe I need to do better and engage with these original stories a little bit more, because even the stuff that I consume, it's all remakes of something else. And
I agree, and I feel that's why I will always say that the studios bear the most responsibility for this. But we as audience members, as people who are consuming these things, there are things that we can do about this, right? And I think one of the things I've been trying to do, and I've been doing more of this year, is I will go out of my way and go to the movies, and I will take a chance more on hey, you know what? I've never heard of this movie, but you know what? Let's see what this is about.
Or a movie that you don't have to see in theaters, but I'll see anyway. I saw Drive Away Dolls. Was it a good movie? No, but I watched it. It's a queer story. It has a woman of color. Let's just pay money for this, because everyone was going to see Dune that weekend. But I'm no, I'm going to go see this instead.
That's fair.
And I think that is it's a privilege to be able to say that I'm going to do that, because I can afford to go and be I will spend my X amount of money on this movie I've never heard of,
and that's
or
why
whatever.
I was saying, I know, you were saying that you are also guilty of this, JJ, but it's also we are a product of our environment. We are also just trying to survive as content creators and consumers of media. So it's when you can, once in a while, if you can. I saw your video about Your Monster. I believe you saw that early. Not many people know about that movie. And for me, Your Monster wasn't playing in my theaters, which sucked. And I'm just this. I really appreciate everyone that encouraged it and wanted to, because they forced me to be okay, where can I find it? So it's I think we do our part. And just going off of Gladiator II, I agree with both of what you had to say. And now I do agree with you that if you enjoy this movie, fine. Okay, I'm not going to yuck your yum. That's why I just said in my video too, I'm I encourage you to rewatch the first one though. That's it. Please rewatch. If you liked Gladiator II, great, but can you watch the first one again? And then
you will feel differently.
Yeah, please, because it's my only thing is you can enjoy things, but I encourage you to think a little critically at times, especially these days.
You have to.
Just ask yourself, why was Denzel the villain? Just ask yourself one question. while watching these things. Like, you don't have to be an expert in media literacy. Like, I'm also really weak in it. Like, I'm been in STEM for so long that English is bad. I can't read books. So like, I'm always struggling too, but I'm like, I just ask myself more questions while watching, especially if you want to engage with media. Just be a little critical here and there. You can enjoy it, but like, you're allowed to question things. It takes no money to question things while watching it. Yes, we have
You have to.
Yeah.
The thing, so many things are sliding into different things that kind of we overlook because of like, oh, let people be. Let's just shut off your brain. Let's just have fun. The curtain is just blue. Like, it's fine to a limit, but sometimes I think we take it to an extreme level. And when we talk about anti-intellectualism, like, people want to lean into, oh, women are reading too much porn, so now no, that's not what anti-intellectualism is.
And the thing with this is like, okay, fine, we have so much we're stressed about. We want to be able to shut off our brain and just enjoy things because like this is our escapism. But at the same time, art is a reflection of where we are going.
Yeah,
and we have to consider that.
There are projects and books that you can absolutely escape into, completely immerse yourself, and not like think. And even in the stupidest stuff that you watch, you're still doing a little bit of thinking. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, nobody's never just not thinking about. To me, that's an insane concept to be watching even the dumbest thing.
Yeah. Like, not everything's going to be megalopolis level.
But speaking of that, like, we were talking about Adam Driver earlier. Like, he's one of those rare actors that's actually doing stuff that nobody else is doing. He's not doing sequels. He's not doing prequels. He's not doing any of this. He's doing insane projects that nobody's watching and everybody hates. But he keeps doing them. Like, to me, like, I think we need to encourage that personally. Maybe he should throw in a little bit of rom-com here and there, or sell out a little bit. But like, stuff like that, like, he's one of those few actors I think that's really like putting out weird movies that are not good and people don't like.
And like, going off of Adam Driver, I will say too, because like, though we live in a world of sequels and I feel like art is dying, I will say the horror genre is thriving.
I know, thriving. It's crushing. It's crushing.
It's literally crushing. By the way, quick plug in for Temple of Geek. We're doing a like movie judging for this year for 2024, and like we have like fantasy, we have AI, of course. And there you have like 6 movies in each category. The horror genre has 15.
Yeah, crushing it.
That's because horror is a type of genre that allows you to like really go insane.
Yeah, it's always not a lot of constraints, political commentary and progression. So it exists for a reason. Yes, it's like if that is still also happening in this day and age, again, consume that media then. You know.
Right.
And I feel like the weird sort of like, you know, way that we just view and engage with like sexuality and everything like that in films, like horror, I feel like is that like one genre that is still engaging in sexual tension, like in ways that like I feel like across the board, like all other genres are just becoming severely lacking, becoming weirdly conservative and like all these other things. And like horror just is still embracing like sexual tension. It's still embracing like queerness in like very like direct ways amongst so much other like political commentary. And like I just feel so at home when I am like watching like horror films, like in a way that I don't feel with like, you know, a lot of other genres these days.
Yeah. Horror continues to give me hope during this time, which is so crazy to say because it's horror, and people always think that they're like, "Oh, it's horror. Like, why would you want to be scared?" And I'm like, it's not like an adrenaline rush. There's a sense of comfort that horror gives because it recognizes what it is to be human.
I want to stress one problem with this as well. They are reserving risky and bold storytelling to a genre not consumed by mainstream.
That is the other issue.
Like you're constraining all of these things that we want to see in mainstream into a niche genre that's only consumed by horror.
So true.
So it's like yes, it's great that we have that medium to consume like a riskier and a bolder storytelling, but at the end of the day, we are still seeing Moana 2, Gladiator 2, Wicked, Mufasa making $300, $400, $500 million.
And one would argue that like the reason why that genre stays progressive is because it's niche.
Correct.
They can't they can take risks because like it's always just been like a risky like genre just in and of itself.
Nobody's gonna watch it type of thing. Yeah.
And like people who already watch it are ready for this type of material. So,
and I want to make clear, like you can have sequels, you can have remakes, and all. I think there should be a balance of like of stories that are original and original IPs, and like even like when you're doing remakes of cartoons, fine, do it. It makes you a lot of money, but make an original spin on it, which is I think what frustrates me about How to Train Your Dragon.
Like you said with Maleficent.
Maleficent is a good example. Like
I would even say like with Wicked, I think another appreciation like with time I've also realized like yeah fine it was a already established story, but they did make decisions in the Wicked movie musical.
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to.
Yeah, sorry, I won't say anything more.
Yeah.
I won't, no spoilers, but like after seeing the Broadway version and like comparing my experience from the Broadway to the movie, I'm like they made choices. They wanted to elevate the story, so it is possible to stay truthful and elevate a story at the same time. You just gotta work at it.
Yeah, and when you, I am very curious, JJ. Like whenever you end up seeing the movie, like to kind of like have your like opinions on it, because like the thing is, I actually do think that Wicked is that example of a movie that has that takes a really popular IP and actually manages to have really powerful political messaging that we need right now, and are able to present it in a way where it's very digestible, and it's very accessible.
So does it work for both of you?
Yes, 100%.
Does it?
Yeah. Okay. So it's
first
essentially Wicked did what Gladiator literally.
Well, and it's funny because I don't know, I think I mentioned this in the group chat, but SNL did a spoof about, so Paul Mescal was on SNL last night, and and they said that they saw the success of Moana 2 and Wicked, and it was very clear what Gladiator needed, and it was a musical, and it's not at all. But it was.
Who knows though? Maybe you could.
Mescal has range.
Can you imagine a musical at a Coliseum with the sword?
No, they did it. They did it on the SNL. I highly recommend you watch. They did a whole musical number into Gladiator Stadium. Many.
I'm sorry. I saw Trisha Paytas being on that show.
Yeah, I just watched the clips. I didn't watch the episode. I just watched the clips of the Gladiator musical.
Hard pass. Not giving her numbers.
I will say, as someone who loved the musical, who's actually now reading the Wicked book, I do appreciate just having Cynthia Erivo play actually having a woman of color, a black woman, actually play the woman of green woman in this musical. That was a choice that they made specifically to drive home the point.
It changes the whole context of the story, in a really, really important way. Well, guys, I think we did it. I think we talked about it all.
I feel better. I feel
I feel like we got it off of our chests, so we really needed
the comparison to. It really healed me because I definitely watched them both back to back. I'm I needed this.
And that's true, actually, for me, because honestly, it was almost the other way for me, because I saw Wicked first, and then I saw Gladiator, and I was just wow.
I felt very differently because everyone kept comparing this to Barbenheimer. Sorry, this will be the last point. And I'm this was very different than Barbenheimer. Wicked is
Barbenheimer is a lightning in a bottle.
We are never getting that again. That was something insane. We are never going to get something that miraculous again. Never
ever. That was a lightning in a bottle marketing.
So that's the best marketing I have ever seen come out of Hollywood in my lifetime.
It's going to be studied forever, and I think they're trying to replicate it with so many different things.
Going to hit like that.
It will never happen again. It will never happen again. Well, I think with that, we are going to wrap up this episode. Before we sign off, I want to, again, just thank both of you for coming onto the podcast today and deep diving into this movie. Hopefully, we didn't get a bunch of people angry at us because of, our feelings about this one. But I thought that this was really great. And, I just think, again, like you said, we need to just be having these kinds of deeper conversations about these movies that are coming out and how this is kind of impacting the art form. But just one more time, do you want to let people know where to find you on social media? Maria, you first.
Yeah, you can find me on Temple of Geek, but you can also follow me on TikTok while it still lasts. And under Maria Watches Everything, also on Instagram, and Watch with Maria on Blue Sky.
You can find me on TikTok until it goes away, and Blue Sky under Lady Dragon JJ. I'll figure something out later after that. And I just want to say thank you for having me to discuss this movie. I really did not like this movie. If you did, it's good for you. Like, with no judgment here. If I yuck your yum, like, I'm a stranger. You don't know me. Like, I should not impact you, how you feel about it. We can be normal about not liking and liking things. I think this movie, had it leaned into comedy, I would have been a lot nicer. Had it leaned into its own thing, it didn't lean into the original, I would have been a lot nicer. But the script was a mess. It was poorly paced. Some of the story choices for the characters were very questionable. It literally jumped the shark. This movie is not good, and I can't just shut off my brain. I think we need to be talking about these things, because otherwise we're just going to be saying welcome and yes to all the corporate slop that they throw at us, that's going to be making $500 million at the box office, and we will never see the end of this. So I do think like you said, we need to be having these conversations. We can enjoy things, but we can also be a little critical. We can still do some low thinking. So
yeah, sometimes very critical, and that's also fine.
And this one, yes.
When is necessary.
Well, this is going to wrap up this episode of Temple of Geek podcast. We want to thank everyone who tuned in today, and especially our guests for being with us today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to hit us up on Blue Sky, on TikTok, and on Instagram by using the handle Temple of Geek. And, if you want to check out some more of our other episodes or shows, you can also find us on YouTube, where you can find all kinds of content there. So thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you too. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.